Minister of Social Services, the Honorable Melanie Griffin, opening up about her decision to support gaming legislation. I'm Jared Higgs. I'll have all the details straight ahead in the Bahamas Tonight.
And the Prime Minister says local government is doing its job.
Plus, high school softball in full swing. The Bahamas Tonight, the National Report, starts now.
Now in HD. ZNS Network presents The Bahamas Tonight. This portion of the news brought to you by BTC Every Day.
The Christie administration placing greater emphasis on developments across the islands. Good evening, I'm Opal Roach.
And I'm Candino Knowles. Well, the country's leader addressed family island administrators last evening at the opening of the local government conference. The theme, strengthening local government to lead future economic expansion and diversification. And
as Keishla Adley tells us tonight, the Prime Minister called on those island officials to prepare for greater roles in national development.
It's 18 years old this year, but since Family Islanders were first invited to participate in local government in 1996, the institution has had to grow up fast and, as Prime Minister Christie notes, expand its horizons alongside economic development.
Development, right, will place now Meguana into a new stream as it will do other islands. And when you look at Bimini, the administrator in Bimini today will tell you how it is now developing exponentially. One set of approvals and boom, it's gone. Today we sat down to look at the application for a new set of approvals for there. So we know Bimini is just going and going and going, full employment, etc. The same thing is going to happen in San Salvador, where San Salvador will have the opportunity momentarily to mobilize. We've just agreed for earthworks to begin at the new Bight Airport in Cat Island. So we expect that the development in Cat Island, long spoken of, long promised, will take place. We've agreed to developments in Exuma, both for the Keys in Exuma and for the mainland of Exuma, where we expect to be significant movement on the part of foreign developers to be able to bring about jobs, new and economic activity, and we really expect, therefore, those islands to take on a life for itself.
Every 3 years, local government meets for a refresher. For Grand Bahama Administrator Alexander Williams, the theme this year should be decentralization.
Decentralization can only fruitfully materialize with the devolution of power and the participatory sharing of resources at all levels.
And there are other concerns. The representatives are being urged to play a greater role in assisting the central government with a vital responsibility.
To introduce greater levels of efficiencies, to be more aware of the need to find revenue that exists but remains uncollected. Because I've just given you an example of this extraordinary burden that is placed on the country for the need to maintain infrastructure. So for me, I ask you again to see and advise on how you are able to help us in that regard.
The local government meeting will run through Thursday. Keishla Adderley, ZNS Network News.
In other news tonight, members of the upper chamber giving their stamp of approval to the crime bills last evening. This comes as government puts measures in place to put a dent in crime. Carla Palmer has more from the Senate.
Government Senator Cheryl Bazard says the decision to abolish the mandatory minimum sentences bill is a good one. She used a study by the British Columbia Civil Liberties Association to support her argument.
Mandatory minimum sentences do not deter crime. It disproportionately affects vulnerable people and increase justice and correctional system costs. Mandatory minimum sentences are bad public policy for everyone. A just, proportionate sentence cannot be one size fits all. The mandatory minimum sentences negate the fact that judges are expert frontline justice workers. And after hearing the evidence, they are best placed to consider the circumstances of the offender and the offense, and to craft a sentence that is just in all of the circumstances.
However, opposition Senator Michael Pintard scolded the government for the high crime level in the country.
Blood continues to run in our streets, in many of our homes. The public is less interested in the technical details, the charts that we show, the senseless map that with dots on it that we present as a part of the theater. What they are interested in, Madam President, is the results. And the results, according to our Minister of State for National Security, the Prime Minister, the Deputy Prime Minister, the results, according to the most recent statement by the nation's leader, is that there is chaos in the street. And we don't glory in the fact that it's not down. We are saddened because the leadership is not in place today in the Bahamas.
Addressing those concerns and bringing the debate to a close, Senator Keith Bell says the government will continue to do all it can to reduce and control crime.
Even before becoming the government, we acknowledged that it was no easy feat. We knew that. Having assumed the authority of the government, Madam President, having looked at the mistakes of the former administration, having reviewed the policies, the existing policies, having looked at the number of policies, Madam President, that were cancelled, Madam President, we knew we had our job cut out. But we were up to the task. We were up to the task then, Madam President, and we remain up to the task now, Madam President.
In addition to senators passing the compendium of crime bills, the Local Government Act was also passed. I'm Carla Palmer for ZNS Network News.
Well, the Social Services Minister today again explaining why the gaming bill will help the country create new streams of revenue and overall help the country's development. Tonight, Jared Higgs has a breakdown of the minister's support of the legislation that will soon become law.
As a country, we have a high debt. We know that we have a lot of areas that need focus, need to be resourced properly.
Minister of Social Services, the Honorable Melanie Griffin, says there were a few reasons that she lent her support to the gaming legislation. At the top of the list was the economic needs of the country. Last week, statistics revealed that young people are the most impoverished group in the Bahamas. However, Minister Griffin is confident that new streams of revenue will be beneficial to young people looking for employment.
That the government is working very diligently to put in place the job or employment opportunities that our young people need.
Minister Griffin also hit out at opponents of the bill, saying you can't have your cake and eat it too.
There's so much in this country that needs to be done, but yes, there's so much resistance to government's efforts to seek new streams of revenue, and that you cannot have something and then want something and don't support what needs to be done in order to help to achieve it.
The Christian Council has maintained their opposition to the legislation, with President Dr. Ranford Patterson saying he believes the bill will lead to more gamblers, a statement that the Deputy Prime Minister disagrees with. To that point, Minister Griffin had this to say.
But another reason for me with regard to that legislation was really the assistance that I feel those persons who have problems gaming will get and making the web shops accountable for what they do in that regard.
The gaming bill is set to become law pending the signature of the Governor General. Jared Higgs, ZNS Network News.
And from the court's legal discussions taking place today in the trial of two former public officers accused of stealing money from the magistrate's court. Laverne Butler and Carla Anderson are accused of stealing $2,000 as well as falsifying accounts. The incidents date back to 2000. During today's proceedings, defense attorneys Ian Cargill and Jeffrey Farquharson made submissions on behalf of the two. Justice Roy Jones will rule on those submissions Wednesday morning.
This segment of the news is brought to you by Shell Quality Fuels.